everybody. So this is my interview with Joe Haldeman. Joe Haldeman wrote a book called The Forever War back in the 70s, right around 1974, called Forever War. He's written multiple books since then, but Forever War is kind of his big one. It's a Vietnam science fiction war novel that is possibly one of my favorite books that's ever been written about war. So we Joe and I talk about war and writing, difficulties of getting something like this published back in the 70s, and kind of everything that he's done since then, and how even 50 years removed, the military is still one deployment to Vietnam, and it's still very much a part of himself and his writing. So please enjoy, and then after this interview, we have a little bit more of just Nate and myself, but hopefully you guys really enjoyed this. Thank you. So yeah, I kind of wanted to direct this more as an interview about because I'm a veteran of Iraq and Afghanistan, and my co-host who isn't going to be able to join in is also a veteran. So a lot of the talk that I wanted to do is kind of around a lot of those experiences as a veteran and as a writer. So just to kind of let you know where I'm going with this interview.
Sure, that sounds good.
Great. So can you give us a little bit of background about your time in the military?
Well, I stayed out of the military for as long as I could with draft deferments in college. And I guess a month after, or even less than a month after I graduated from college, I got drafted. And I went to the Army and said, okay, you've got me for 2 years. What can you offer me if I join up for 2 years rather than just be drafted? Which they were advertising as a viable alternative. So they said, oh, sure, look, we'll make you a scientific assistant. Say, you just wash test tubes or something probably, but at least you'd be working in the sciences.
Sure.
Rather than being a soldier. Well, sure, that's great. Where do I sign? I didn't know, of course, the sergeant got $25 for getting me to sign under any pretenses. So
right.
You just threw away the rest of the paperwork. And I went and was drafted like anybody else. And I wound up, the Army has its own battery of tests, of course, even for conscripted labor. And I was way up high in that because I do have a high IQ, and I had 6 years of college and a degree in physics. And so, yeah, I could do the Army intelligence test. And what happened was I got drafted into the lowest of the low. What we told each other in the engineers was, if you're too stupid to carry a rifle, they hand you a shovel and make you an engineer.
I know that a lot of my engineer listeners are going to love that one.
Yeah.
Because, see, I would say, because the engineers that I know are generally fairly intelligent. It's like, well, you're too smart for us to just give you a rifle, so here's some C4, and hopefully you don't blow yourself up.
Yeah. Or maybe we can't trust you with a rifle, so here's a shovel.
My father was a combat engineer. Some of the stories that he tells me does make me question the combat engineer's intelligence sometimes.
Yeah, really. Well, we did have to handle high explosives, and you would think that they would want intelligent people for that. But if you thought that, you don't know the Army, do you?
Yeah, they'll take anybody.
Yeah.
So why not? I mean, if you had a college degree, why not go into the officer corps? At least get paid a little bit more money while you're getting blown up.
Well, at that time, it wasn't that simple because it would have been 3 years.
Oh, well.
And then it turns out I would have had to go to Vietnam anyhow. Oh, I wouldn't be in a combat position. But, by the time I'd heard that, by the time I got to that little lie, I thought, oh, yeah, right. Here, Sergeant, will you sign this thing that you told me?
Yeah, well, I'm glad to hear that even back in the 60s, recruiters were still lying to people to get you in.
Oh, exactly. Yeah.
I always say I had the one honest recruiter because he told me exactly. He's like, it's going to suck. I don't know what you're expecting here. I don't know. But it was pre 9/11, so it was, he's just like, well, it's not that bad. There's not like there's a war on or anything. And then, whoops.
Cancel that. Yeah.
Yeah. So you spent time in Vietnam, and also by this time you're already a writer. You're already doing short stories and getting published and everything, right?
I wasn't getting published. I had written short stories, a little bit of fiction. I had written some poetry, and I was sort of what you would think of now as a fan writer because I'd done a couple of articles for my brother's fanzine. Uh,
Fan of what?
Oh, it was science fiction.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah,
So
and in fact, it was only science fiction. I didn't care for fantasy at the time.
so you weren't one of the Tolkien nerds back then.
Well, there was no Tolkien back then.
Oh, okay.
That was before the books. The books came out right after I got drafted.
Oh, okay. So you end up going to Vietnam, and then you come back, and was Forever War like the first novel that you wrote afterwards?
No, no, I wrote one novel called War Year, which was just about Vietnam.
Okay.
And it's not science fiction; it's a straight war novel, and it got a full page review in the New York Times Book Review, and then just evaporated.
Right.
As often happens with first novels,
And when was that published? What year was that? 72?
1972. Yeah.
Yeah, because I kind of wonder because that was kind of on the downslope of Vietnam, and there was probably being a little bit more okay with these various what am I thinking, publications that are quote anti-war. Although
Yeah.
I read which I've got a bunch of books next to me by you. War stories. My father gave me war stories, and I read through a lot of that, and it's kind of a the as I tell people, it's not anti-war, but it is just kind of telling you exactly what happened, which makes it anti-war because it sounds like it's absolute hell.
Yeah, well, it's just realistic. Yeah.
Right, and that's and that's we don't see that in a lot of novels now. There's the only like current novel that I can think of that's like that is a one that recently came out called Hooligans of Kandahar by a guy Joe Kasabian, which I'd highly recommend because it's a he talked about his time in Afghanistan. He's like, it sucks. The leadership was terrible. We got shot at a lot, and everybody was incompetent except for me and like these three other people.
Right.
So it's and that's very much what a lot of what kind of the it's not war stories wasn't, it was fictionalized, but it's obviously based on your time in.
It's a good template for.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So do you think that I know you were already a fan of science fiction before going in, but does science fiction lead to is it a good genre specifically to kind of handle war, to discuss war stories?
Oh, I think it is. Yeah, it's a good kind of a genre for most action stories. And science fiction, of course, gives you a wide range of environments. And in your writing, even if about your own war experiences, sometimes you want to have a sort kind of metaphorical remove and just not always be talking about the things that happen to you.
Right. So in that time, you got your first book published, and then it evaporated. But the second one, was it like harder to find an editor for that to be a science fiction anti-war book?
I don't know. In fact, the editor, let me see now. It
was rejected.
It was rejected by, God, almost everybody. I didn't have an editor. I was just sending it out. And I think 17 publishers rejected it.
Wow.
And then basically, I was at a cocktail party in New York City, and I was commiserating with some people about this. And one of my buddies, who was a magazine editor who had bought several of my stories, and he says, well, you ought to try this new guy, Tom Dunn, over at St. Martin's Press, because he doesn't do science fiction. And I said, well, that makes sense. And he said, well, but he said if he got some good literary science fiction, he might do it. So I sent him The Forever War, and he picked it up just like that. And it got a decent editorial treatment. I mean, it might have had a $500 advertising budget. And it got well reviewed. It was reviewed by a senior reviewer in the New York Times Book Review who didn't do science fiction. So he picked it up and said, well, this may be science fiction, but it's a really good novel anyhow. And that's actually a good oblique selling job right there, because the science fiction fans are going to buy it anyhow. And they tell each other what to buy.
Right.
Yeah.
So, what was it, why was it getting rejected? Because obviously it's a well received. It's never been out of print since it first started printing. So what was the hesitation before it got up there?
As you were saying, the war was not popular. And the basic idea was nobody wants to pay to hear a story about Vietnam. I mean, what a depressing fucking thing to write. So basically, the people, that's what I heard from everybody. And as often happens, the general opinion was dead wrong, because people did want to read about Vietnam and science fiction about Vietnam. I mean, the Forever War almost started a whole subgenre of science fiction, this kind of realistic war novel, which you look back over, just Google science fiction war novels, and almost everything before the Forever War was kind of, rah, 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 aren't the soldiers great? And it's just, isn't this wonderful? And it was all kind of YA or juvenile pitch. But, and the reason I found out was there were plenty of people writing adult science fiction novels. But as soon as an editor got this novel and found out by page 2 that it was set someplace other than Earth, they'd say, oh, fuck this, it's science fiction. And people they just wouldn't read it, because they perceived science fiction readers as being kids. And saying, well, if you're going to write about a war story for kids and you want it to be Captain's Courageous kind of stuff.
Yeah, I guess you think back to like H.G. Wells and stuff, and that's what which is fun science fiction, but it's not. It doesn't really dig into it. Which is one of the reasons I've always liked science fiction. Is that I like science fiction that spends more time discussing the human element of it than the rah-rah spaceships and everything like that, which I think Forever War really did well. In fact, I know a lot of soldiers now refer to the war that we're in as the Forever War, because it's just like keeps getting tacked onto. So it's culturally that book has really resonated with a lot of veterans, especially the ones who get out and they're like me, disillusioned afterwards and say, what the fuck was that all about? What did we do that for? Why is it all still messed up? I mean, I went to Afghanistan in 2004. I mean, we're still there. It's 2019. So really makes you wonder, did you waste that year? Probably. Yeah.
It just, current events didn't turn out right, because you're trained to be a hired killer with high technology at your disposal. And then for some reason, when you get out of the Army, nobody needs to hire a hired killer with technology. I mean, you can still get a job with the mafia killing people with little guns, but I mean, shit, what's that?
Right.
Get somebody off the street to do that.
Yeah, when you're trained to use C4, you're trained to use artillery pieces. What do you do when you get out? And
yeah, you can hardly buy C4 anywhere nowadays.
Right.
I learned how to make my own, though.
So how do you do that? Do you have a recipe? Is it illegal? Are you going to get me the FBI knocking on my door?
I wouldn't.
Or your door?
In fact, you can Google it.
Oh, okay. Well, I'll Google it from somebody else's computer.
Yeah.
Yeah. But the cute thing you can do is what we did in Vietnam, in fact, you make napalm just with essentially Vaseline get a huge tub of Vaseline, and you mix this sort of stabilizer into it, which looks like sugar, and then just keep adding gasoline until it has the right napalm-like consistency. And man, you just screw a top on it, put a fuse on it, and you've got a wonderful bomb. But of course, the white powder is not something you can buy at the drugstore.
Right.
It's naphthalene crystals. I didn't say that.
I'm sure that some kid out there has already figured out how to make napalm. Anyway, I always heard that it was you could use styrofoam. I mean, napalm is just a thing that like catches fire and doesn't go out. But
Yeah. Well, napalm is it. If have you ever been the victim of napalm? It's the scariest shit in the world because it comes out and it's like flaming glue and it sticks to everything, including people's. And human flesh burns wonderfully covered with napalm, and you can't put it out with water. And you can't put it out by beating on it because you just kill the person.
yeah, I remember the one napalm that I had, the training that we had very very basic, napalm and atomic training. And for napalm, it was find mud and put mud on top of it, and then just keep packing mud on it because that will smother it. But as soon as the mud comes off, it catches fire again. So it's like put mud on them and
the problem with it.
Yeah, put mud on it and then get them to an aid station. And then for atomic, they would have us, if a bomb would go off, so we're all running, and they would, simulate a nuke, which would just be like a loud flashbang. And it's everybody drops to your ground with your head, like your helmet, towards the explosion, and your hands covering your nuts.
We did that, yeah.
Yeah, and I was like,
first you take out your last will and testament.
Right.
They sign it, So take care of that little detail.
Yeah, I remember doing that. I was like, you can just tell us we're going to die. It's fine. You can just...
We already had that covered.
Right. Right. If I see a mushroom cloud in the distance, I'm just going to assume I'm dead. It's fine, So
I'm just going to take out my absentee ballot and fill it out really fast.
Whatever it is, vote the bastard out that started this.
Yeah.
So after Forever War, you did Forever Free and Forever Peace, mixed in with all the other books. What brought you back to that series?
Well, the first thing was they asked me, when is there going to be a sequel to the Forever War? And I said, what do you mean? It's
right.
novel. I mean, it ends with the guy goes home, gets married, has a baby. I mean, what do you need? And they said, but no. Finally, they said, well, if you write a sequel, we'll give you lots of money. And I said, oh, yes, I can just see where the story's going now. So I pulled a typewriter out of my coat pocket and started going like that. That was the only motivation for it. They dangled large amounts of money in front of me for the sequel, and then for the sequel to the sequel again. And, I don't think any of the subsequent books are as good as the Forever War, but it was a complete book, and so I wrote other books about that book, basically.
I thought it was an interesting direction that you went with it, with the capital letter man and capital letter woman, after everything. It was an interesting, and then kind of doing their own rebellion kind of thing. But yeah, it really felt like the story was in Forever War, and then that was the point. It was a Vietnam book.
Well, did you ever read any Olaf Stapledon?
I don't believe so.
No, he's before your time, really, but this is a kind of science fiction that we used to call Stapledonian, because he wrote a book called Last and First Men, which was, pretty good-sized book, and it covered the next million years of human evolution. So it was really large themes about human nature and aggression and intellectual activity and this and that and the other thing. Well, I thought that I wanted to go in that direction too. But of course, the Forever War is very closely focused on one person's life, and it covers a certain part of his lifespan. And he's still middle-aged when the story's over. Well, I thought, okay, so I'll write about him getting older and so forth. Well, here I am, a 32-year-old guy, deciding to write about elderly men. And I think, well, yeah, I know elderly men, like not at all. I mean, I sort of knew my father, but not very well. And so, I did what I could on that. And then when the story started to involve really old people, I used a woman. I figured, I'm going to be inventing all this anyhow. I might as well go whole hog and invent into another gender. And actually that worked okay. And I haven't had women readers complain that she's not realistic, because after all, she is a human being like the guys too. But it was an interesting challenge. But I don't know what I would have done as a writer if I didn't have that sitting there just begging to be written. Because there are other, as you say, I mean, I've written another, I couldn't tell you off the top of my head, but probably 15, 18 novels that weren't in the Forever War series. So I don't have any shortage of ideas. But what this is an idea that's already pre-sold to an editor. And pre-sold meaning already automatically has a budget, automatically has a review schedule, blah, blah, blah. And I'm a professional writer. I don't write stuff to throw it off the edge of a cliff and just throw it away. I don't write it for the pleasure of writing it, although it's not unpleasant to write. I would rather sit at home and drink. I mean, who wouldn't? So
fair enough.
Yeah. Although that forces retirement on a certain number of writers, because they do like to drink more than they like to write.
I haven't yet to meet a writer that I respect that doesn't drink. So
yeah.
Yeah,
I had to stop, otherwise I'd be
right.
And the same, yeah.
Exactly. Either they used to drink and they had to stop themselves, or they still draw a lot of their help from alcohol, which I'm not shit talking. I drink too, and I'm not a good writer, so it certainly hasn't helped me any.
I like Tennessee Williams.
Mm-hmm.
He was sitting right, and he had a servant, a black fellow who this is after slavery, but only not even a generation after slavery, and he had this tall black man who stood off in the same room with him, with a seltzer bottle and a bottle of whiskey. And when Mr. Williams' drink got a little low, he'd come over and put some seltzer water in there and pour some whiskey. And he wouldn't even have to ask, because that's why you have the guy standing there.
Right.
Yeah.
So does, all the books that are outside of Forever War, does, your experience in the war still kind of inform a lot of your writing, even, now 50 years removed?
Yeah, sometimes. Thematically, it's not always obvious. Often the characters have a war in their background. Mm-hmm. Although not always. Sometimes I write people whose early life is a mystery, or who definitely...
Your latest.
My latest, Gay says, is Work Done for Hire, which is very much a person who is not a soldier but is a killer.
Right. The kind of mafiosa.
Well, no, she says he was a soldier.
He was a sniper.
Yeah.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, I did. I read like a quick plot summary on that, and yeah, sniper with his finger shot off and getting offered lots of money to do shady things, which is always a fun genre to go down.
Well, as an infantry engineer kind of guy, I had a love-hate relationship with snipers, because the snipers on our side could be really useful, but the snipers on the enemy side were hell on wheels, because they could wait for a long time and just pop you off when the lights came on.
Waiting for you to light up a cigarette so they can see you.
That's what we always thought about, God, I want a cigarette. But
well, they always there more than one forward operating base that I was on where they said, hey, look, 1, don't salute the officers, and 2, if you're going to smoke, you got to cup it in your hand so that they don't see the light. And it's like, I don't think that, we really have dudes out here with Dragunov sniper rifles taking us in. They're like, no, but they can still see you and they can still target you with an RPG. So just don't fucking do it.
It's not like they have to be that accurate with an RPG.
Right. They got to get it in your vicinity, and it's going to, it's going to screw up the day anyway. I mean, there are plenty of times we get hit with mortars at like, 1 a.m. So everybody got to get out of bed. They got to get into their, into their shelters and everything. And then we have to wait until like we get the all clear, and it take like 2 hours sometimes. So you're just all sitting in there smoking in these, giant like concrete bunkers waiting for the all clear, and then you still got to be at work at 7 a.m. So,
Yeah.
so good luck. It's not like you could lay down and sleep because there's like 10 people in there all talking and smoking and everything. So
Yeah.
it'll just it'll mess up the day regardless.
Yeah, it's worth popping one round to screw up everybody's day.
So let's see, my co-host had another question on it. Oh, what were some of the reactions you had when you tried to pitch the idea of science fiction? I guess we did kind of talk about that, how people didn't like that it was science fiction, but was it being Vietnam and people didn't want Vietnam either, I guess. So
Yeah.
so at no point in time was anybody really clamoring for this book.
Yeah.
You said that it kind of almost kickstarted a new subgenre of science fiction. Was there anything like afterwards that really kind of stuck out to you as like following the footsteps of Forever War?
I haven't followed science fiction that much. I keep hearing from people saying, wow, so I think I've read essays that claimed it was very central to the development of modern science fiction. But who knows? I mean, that's such an obvious thing to say because it did win all the awards.
Well, I mean, I know that it is put on a lot of lists of if you're reading science fiction, Forever War is definitely on there because it crosses over between war fiction and science fiction.
And hard science fiction, yeah.
Yeah, and I think that the I always recommend it to both civilian and military because I think that it tells stories to both sides differently. On the civilian side, you kind of get the broad outlayer of a war that's constantly going on, and then it's just every time you go out and you come back, there's things that have changed, and but for the person who's in the military, like I remember when I got back from Afghanistan, I went to the grocery store like the first time,
Yeah.
and I had to leave because I was overwhelmed. People say that war is hard, but it's not. It's really easy because you just show up and you have your job and you do what you do, and what do I eat? This is the thing I eat today. I don't have to make a decision. What am I doing today? The commander says this is what I'm doing today, and so this is then you get home and I'm standing in front of the peanut butter aisle and being like, why do we have so much peanut butter? Why are there so many different kinds of peanut butter here?
Yeah.
Who needs this? So that really every time you went out and come back and everything was just massively changed, was pretty surprising. Though I do want to ask, every time for a book in the 70s, every time you went out and came back, the politics of Earth was very progressive. I mean, you had themes of homosexuality not just becoming accepted, but the norm. Or more progressive politics, going out. Did that kind of mirror what you were hoping for, or was there something to or did you just need to create an Earth that was so drastically different than the Earth that was, when people would pick it up in the 70s, what they would have?
My aim was purely satirical. I mean, the making homosexuality the norm was just slapping people in the face and saying, look at this, you think you're normal. Oh, yeah.
Right. Normal doesn't mean anything in 5,000 years.
Yeah, exactly. Or even 50. It depends on how fast things are changing.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So I think that a lot of the kids in the 60s who were liberal and thought, yeah, okay, everything's changing fast, would be really surprised to see how acceptable it is to be a lesbian today.
Mm-hmm.
Say, well, that's empowerment. I'm not just a woman, I'm a superwoman because I don't need men at all. And I go, okay, I don't need men either. What's your point?
Well, and that is that is one of the things that I love about science fiction. You can just do whatever the hell you want with it. Just science fiction comes. Just what do you want? I want to make everybody homosexual. Why not? And he comes back. The intrepid hero comes back and he's just, well, we can make you that? And he's just like, let me just be who I am.
Yeah.
And then, of course, in a separate war, then Mary Gay comes back, and they get to be together, and it was I do like that eventually the guy does get a happy ending, even though it's in some kind of brave new world, he still gets to have a kid at the end and have his own family.
Yeah. Yeah.
So you say you don't really keep up with science fiction these days?
Not too much.
All right.
I read some, but I read all kinds of stuff.
I was a big fan of N.K. Jemison's fifth season series that just won. This is a hat trick to the Hugos, so that was. So what are you reading now? What's on your bedside now?
I'll be reading Jemison actually.
Okay.
Because my wife, Gay, loves her.
Yeah, she's phenomenal.
Just to be perverse, I'm going back to reading the Horatio Hornblower stories and Admiral what is it?
Master and Commander.
Master and Commander, which I read in Vietnam and loved it. And then a guy reminded me day before yesterday about it, and so I'm thinking, hey, I'll go back and reread that and see why they impressed me so much. My father sent them to me when I was in Vietnam, and I just ate them up. I mean, I consumed them completely. And I don't know. I have a certain interest in military things, but it's very, very far removed from my real life nowadays.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's one of the things that I try to do. Is the military is definitely a part of who I am, obviously, because I'm still in the reserves, and I'll have 20 years in, and I've gone, one side of the world to the other with the military, but also like there's this entire civilian side of me, and you don't want the military to just be the only thing. So I don't read a lot of military books myself, mostly because, as you said, a lot of the ones that come out are all about, how great and wonderful this guy was while he was,
right.
Killing people in Vietnam. And, when you're kind of withdrawn from that a little bit, you think, I mean, he didn't have to be in Vietnam, though. I mean, that whole thing was kind of dumb. But sure, you want to tell me about the heroics of a guy killing people in a war that didn't have to happen, I guess.
Yeah. Well, what is the point here? I mean,
right.
And I just read about a plain mass murderer.
Right. Right. It's a lot easier that way.
Yeah.
That's. I tell you,
there was this one. What Sniper? Is that the name of it? It's
American Sniper.
American Sniper.
Yeah.
Well, I read that, and I liked the writing. It was well done, but it was also kind of horrifying because I was thinking, this is a guy who could have been next door to me, shoulder to shoulder with me when I was a soldier. And I would have been terrified of him. I'd be afraid he'd get my shit blown up because he didn't seem to care. He just wanted to go out and get action. And I'm going, hold it, the point is to go home in one piece. That would be really nice, wouldn't it? But no, he wants to go out and engage the enemy and say, maybe if we throw a grenade over there, he can draw their attention. And I'm going, no.
No, I'm with you. And I watched the movie too, and there was definitely, like, he was talking to some soldier, like doing Overwatch on a roof, and I can't remember. The soldier was like, I just want to stay up here and like not do anything, and he like gave him this look of like, how dare you not want to like go down there and get shot at? It's like, because he was doing Overwatch while soldiers were door kicking, and he's like, it's better to be up here. It's like, how dare you not want to go die for the glory in this unnamed Iraqi village somewhere looking for God knows what. It's like, God, of course I don't.
Why do you think you got those steel toes in your boots? Go kick down a fucking door. No, while you're at it, kick down a civilian and stomp him.
Right. Yeah, and they really make it out to be like, how I can't believe that you wouldn't want to be a part of this war. It's like, man, I've been a part of that war. It sucked ass. Like, I mean, maybe like even World War II. My grandfather was a navigator in World War II on the bombers, and he didn't talk about it either because guess what? It sucked. I mean, no matter how much heroics there are, it really sucks to get shot at.
Yeah. Being a navigator and a bomber feels like a really exposed position too.
Well, especially when you get shot down and you're like behind enemy lines for like 18 months, which is what happened to him. So it's there's a lot of stories out there about and I'm sure that some of them are great and heroic, and it's hard. I certainly can't say, how dare you drop bombs on Nazis? Like, no, please go fucking do that. But
Right.
pretty much most of the wars past that, it's like, this really doesn't seem like it had to happen. We just wanted to go kill people because they were communists. Like, no,
Yeah.
just let them do what they want to do.
Yeah.
If the Vietnamese want to be communists, if they want to, that's fine. Who am I to tell them
I
no?
always wondered why that was a problem. We got this whole China full of communists, and they're not bothering us. And so little penis hanging off the edge of China is when communists, you go, ooh, I'm scared.
Well, we knew we weren't going to win in China, so I always felt like Vietnam was kind of a precursor to be like, well, let's see what we could do. And then, we got, stomped on by a bunch of guys in black pajamas and AK-47s, and
Yeah.
like, well, that's maybe we don't do this anymore. And of course, then we went and did the exact same thing in the desert on the other side, and we're pretty much the same things happening.
Yeah. Keep trying until we get it right.
We're not gonna get it right. Well, we'll see what happens with Venezuela.
Yeah.
Oh dear.
Yeah, that's far enough away.
Yeah. So, Joe, I really appreciate you coming on to do this interview. It's if I could toot your horn a little bit, Forever War has been one of my favorite novels, and honestly, I need to go back and reread it ever since like my politics switched over to being more of a left-leaning anti-war person than I was the first time I read it. But much like you going back to read Horatio Hornblower, I just wonder, there's a lot of things that I read a long time ago. Like, it's been a long time since I've read Left Hand of Darkness. Been a long time since I've read what was the other one I was thinking of? Catch-22.
Right.
Military, absurdist military book, and so I'm restacking the pile of books next to my bed that has all of that, to redo a lot of those things. 'Cause I haven't read things since
Good idea. Yeah.
10 years, 10 or 15 years changes a lot of stuff. So I'll be looking forward to going to do that too. So, but thank you so much for taking some time out to talk to me. It's been really fantastic.
Sure. Always glad to do it.
Hey everybody, and welcome back from the interview. We got a couple of other things that we wanted to talk about. We're our favorite murder bots are back in the news. Nate, what do you got for me?
Yeah, so we've been following a couple of cases here recently, regarding war crimes and military misconduct in combat zones. And there are a couple of people that we focused on, but particularly the one that really shocked us a few months ago was the reporting on a guy named Eddie Gallagher, who's a Navy SEAL who was both a sniper and a medic, and was just like nonstop deployment machine, who apparently was committing war crimes left and right, and apparently, and even within the SEALs, shocked people with his attitude towards committing war crimes, to the point where he wound up killing a teenage detainee who was receiving medical treatment. He was an ISIS fighter. They estimated he was I've seen one place say between 12 and 17, one place say between 15 and 17, but he was a very young, you've seen, there's a video of this happening, and I've seen a video still of the kid's face. He has no facial hair. He looks very, very young. Gallagher stabbed him on camera while he was receiving medical treatment, and then used his dead body as a re-enlistment photo, like with to hold him by the hair and do a re-enlistment photo, like it was like he had bagged a deer. So obviously this guy was shocking even to the Navy SEAL community. And two new developments have come out on his case. One is that, the biggest thing here, that's sort of the overarching point, is that members of his chain of command have actually requested immunity from prosecution in order to testify against him. And in one particular case, there's a SEAL officer who's going to offer testimony, and the kind of highlights takeaway from the things he's willing to tell them is that, number one, he basically would take a hold of SEALs in his team and drive them or make them go to places where he knew they would get into firefights, because he's like, their training is bullshit. This is how we do real training, by getting into firefights. No, these weren't missions. These were just opportunities to get shot at and shoot back. And the people complain because they're like, this is fucking stupid. You're going to get people killed. There's no reason to do this. But no one was willing to stand up to the guy because he was the badass chief. Secondly, apparently he, during an engagement, he knowingly called in the wrong grid coordinates on an airstrike just because he wanted to blow up a mosque. Because he thought, haha, I get to blow up a mosque and be a dick, apparently. And that people all knew that he needed to be relieved, but they wouldn't do it because he was just too badass, too much of a killing machine. And so it's only now in the aftermath that people are coming forward and being willing to admit this.
He's Jeremy Renner in Hurt Locker.
Yeah, he's the real life version of Jeremy Renner in the Hurt Locker, yeah, for sure. So I guess pointing that out, I don't know, Francis, if you have any reactions. I mean, you're in the position where you've had to spin stories when people do dumb shit downrange. How do you spin something when people are coming forward being like, no, this was very much done intentionally?
So here's the thing about me being the spin doctor that I am. We don't spin. We tell the truth. What we do is in public affairs, we call it command messages, which is like a compliment sandwich. Where it's you compliment and then you say something. It's like, but this thing was bad, but then you compliment again at the end. So like it's something like this. Me standing in front of the news organizations. Obviously we can't. I can't give my own opinion on this in front of the news organizations, which is, this dude is insane and probably murdered the shit out of not just this one guy, but probably murdered a lot of other people. Consider what could be considered murder. But it's you just kind of have to the military is looking into this, and we're doing everything that we can to get as much information about this, and the trial is set for whenever. But I mean, it's very telling that all of a sudden a lot of his like platoon mates want to come out and be like, no, I want to tell this story. And I will tell this story if you give me immunity. I will admit to things on my end to nail this guy basically. And as you said, people didn't like him. He was a wild man. He was crazy, and that doesn't make for a good team leader. That just makes for an asshole who gets people killed. It's incredible that, if indeed his actions never did get somebody killed, I'm sure that they, obviously his actions got, Iraqis killed or Afghans killed. It'd be surprising if they didn't get some Americans wounded or killed too. But it is incredible to me that, we are, 18 years, like the Afghan war could join the army and go to the Afghan war at this point. It's been going on so long, and like it feels like the collective psyche of a lot of people in America has gone from like, this is, there are a lot of people who say we need to get out of it, obviously, but there is like this this group of people, and some of them who are fucking elected members of Congress, like fucking Dan Crenshaw and Duncan Hunter, fan of the show, Duncan Hunter, who, think that, you can do no wrong. Like Duncan Hunter had a tweet about it, about how, people are being constricted by the rules of engagement. His argument wasn't, what he did was okay. The argument was he should be allowed to murder people. Like whether or not we have, proper evidence that these things have been done. And like, it's strange to me that people who have been in the military for, an extended period of time, because Duncan Hunter was, is an officer. He's still in. Crenshaw was Crenshaw. He was special forces, right? Or something along those lines.
Dan Crenshaw was, he was a SEAL.
He's SEAL, right? So he's, operators, but like, and I've always been told that, to be a SEAL, you have to be very smart, but it always seems like SEALs are like the dumbest motherfuckers I've ever seen, because they can't understand they can't understand cause and effect. They don't understand, like, hey, if you keep, if you shoot calling grid coordinates on purpose to blow up a mosque, and then we blow up a mosque, whether or not you did it on purpose or accident, you've just created a bunch more terrorists. You are extending this issue here. Nothing is going to be done here. And in the end, I just feel like people at this point are just horny for war, and they just want to keep doing it. See anybody who's just like, yeah, we have to really do something to help the people of Venezuela. So we have to go, send aircraft carriers, and we have to send bombs and weapons down there. Like, we're talking about a president who called, Mexicans rapists and murderers. And suddenly I'm supposed to think that he gives a fuck about a Venezuelan? I'm supposed to think you give a fuck about a Venezuelan? Of course you don't. You just want to fucking blow shit up. And just say that. Because, in any other context, it just doesn't seem authentic in any way.
Well, also, it's funny that you would mention famous vaper and gamer Duncan Hunter, who really loves gaming and vaping with his campaign funds, because he recently went on Fox News, and he basically said that the government is trying to be too compassionate in combat, and they should not make the rules of engagement so strict. He was saying this in the context of Matthew Goldstein, who's a major and a Green Beret who was convicted of murder, but to whom he's become a co-celeb for the insane fash right, because, in the grand scheme of things, I think the simplest way to phrase it is they don't believe that killing someone who isn't American counts as murder. That nobody is allowed to, and no one should face punishment for that. And I think also one of the things is that makes these cases always so ridiculous is it's never what it's portrayed to be. It's never something where like some overzealous lib is sending you to prison. Matthew Goldstein executed a dude and then burned his body and lied about it. Like, all of those things, no matter how you try to spin it, there's no way you can innocently do that. It's like, whoops, I slipped on a banana peel and murdered a dude and set his body on fire. Like, that just doesn't fucking happen. And so all of this is just a really bad faith argument, basically trying to make Fox News grandpas think that the libs, even though Trump is the president, the libs are somehow making the military, what's the right word here? They are hampering the military. They are hamstringing the military with their laws of like human rights and whatever, and they just don't understand the truth about war because they're libs. And obviously that we've made that argument a bunch of times. But Duncan Hunter, who is probably going to go to jail at some point for a variety of dumb things, I think he's not saying this as a military expert in any capacity. He's just saying it because it's the thing that you say when you're a right-wing commentator on Fox News, that, Obama betrayed the military, he was stabbed him in the back, blah, 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 etc. And Donald Trump will save us somehow.
Yeah, there's been a lot of troops that I talked to post-Obama years. There's a lot of talk about how, finally we have somebody who lets us take the gloves off. And just like, what gloves have been taken off? Like, what's changed about our, the way that we do combat overseas or in Iraq or Afghanistan? Like, we have a president who, like, a long time ago was saying that Iraq and Afghanistan were stupid endeavors and still says it. And while, he's never going to president deal his way out of it because, all the dipshit Democrats are going to keep, filing injunctions to keep us at war for some insane reason because we live in a fucking crazy world. The rules of engagement haven't changed. We're still doing the exact same thing. At least, according to everything that I've been reading and I've been seeing. Sure, we dropped a Moab in combat and there were some dicey ideas of what it did and who it killed, but like there was really nothing else beyond that. It was just, somebody told us we dropped a bomb and, there was nothing else about it. It's like, there was that first year of Trump's presidency where like every CNN commentator was just like, I can't believe we've done this. I can't believe this is happening. Oh my God. And then like Trump would like ineffectively bomb a Syrian airstrip and would be like, he finally became a president that day. When he, wasted a shitload of hellfires that did literally nothing. So it's, I don't know. It's a weird, like the military now has a very strange relationship with Donald Trump, because I don't like if you spend 5 minutes listening to him talk about the military, he loves it, right? But then you spend another 5 minutes looking at like what he does to it, letting like 3 randos at his golf club make VA decisions because they asked to, privatizing the VA. There's all kinds of different things that he's doing that are like, complete antithesis to anything that would be useful towards veterans. and so you have but for some reason the military still supports him. And as you said, when you're a right wing veteran and you're a Republican, you're a conservative who gets elected to the House or to the Senate or something, it's like you have to take this party line stance of they did nothing wrong, and never think about what are the consequences here? Why did we get to this point, and how do we continue? How do we find a fucking end to this war? And nobody has that answer because the conservatives just want to do war crimes, and the Democrats don't want to leave because the president wants to leave, and we can't let the president win anything. We can't ever let the president be correct. So we have to continue doing war, and we have to keep killing people. We have to keep creating just another batch of terrorists every generation. Every 3 years, we have to kill off some dads and let their kids grow up fatherless and hungry and angry. And for some reason, we just have to keep doing that. And we have to, not prosecute the people who are fucking doing it. I don't know. I mean, we talk about, obviously this guy, did war crimes, and I want him to go to jail, but there's a lot of people I want to go to jail for the Iraq and Afghan wars. So it feels very hollow to be like, well, we got this guy for doing it, but meanwhile, Dick Cheney walks around like a free human. So I don't know.
Well, something I point out too is just that there never seems to be a moment in which people are forced to reckon that they were wrong about something previously. And we've been saying this stuff, and other people have been saying this stuff about the folly of the way we've pursued these conflicts. But they've been saying it for 15 years. And the children who were infants when the Iraq war happened, whose parents might have died in the bombings, etc., are now probably 17, 18 years old. They're getting quite close to adulthood. So there's an entire generation of people who have only known this. And similarly, I mean, when I see things about guys like this Matthew Goldstein or this guy Eddie Gallagher, their entire careers more or less have been spent in a constant state of warfare, which is not to excuse them at all. Fuck them and fuck war crimes. It's more that it creates this situation in which right-wing people want to venerate the troops, particularly the operators. And there's never any question that maybe the way we've pursued policies and, prosecuting the war in general has made things worse so that more of these guys have to die, or more of these guys have to go and fucking get killed or commit murders and kill people in combat. And it's this endless cycle. And it's like, to them, what matters is that they're good at their job, they kill terrorists, and they have to be respected and also protected from the libs, but they never seem to be good enough at their jobs to end the wars. You know what I mean? They never seem to kill all the terrorists.
You know what it is? It's because for a lot of people, there's no better death than to get fucking smoked by an RPG in some nameless Iraqi city. The best thing you could ever do is to go over and to kill bad guys and to die a hero's death and come back. Like, I'll come back in a pine wood box covered with an American flag, and I'll be buried, among my brethren, here at Jefferson Barracks or out at Arlington. And that's, there is this, it's fucking romanticized at this point. And I know every war, there's some fucking poet that's got to make, romantic gestures about it. But at this point, it just feels like there's this, we've talked about the warrior caste that we have now, who want nothing more to do than to go and kill bad guys and die in the name of freedom, because that's the ultimate win. That's muting somebody on the timeline after you drop a really good zinger. You at somebody with something, with a really good gift that's just really dunks on them, and then mute them. That's dying in Iraq. Because at that point, nobody can say shit to you because you're dead, and you're just like, excuse me, I died in Iraq. What the fuck are you gonna
owned, bitch?
Yeah, you can never be more heroic than me, guy who's still alive with his wife and child at home and not, not being scattered across the fucking desert on the other side of the world for no discernible reason. That's what, and of course the people who believe that are not the people who would actually die. Hunter and Crenshaw are not people who will die overseas anymore. I mean, Hunter will probably go to jail, and Crenshaw will never, deploy again. But like, still, there's like this mythos of like the greatest thing that you can do is to die in service of the country because you have done the final, like the ultimate sacrifice, as we call it. And like, I'm being honest, it sounds like shit. I don't want to die.
Yeah, it really sucks. I don't want to die for, I remember years ago, I remember posting on a forum where there was at least some decently intelligent conversation about the military, and it was a little, there was some dumb shit too. But one thing that I remember a guy saying was he was an Iraq vet, and he said, I'm really taken aback by the extent to which people lose their minds and become completely incoherent, raving monsters when you suggest that A, the war in Iraq was a bad idea, and B, that we might have gone about it the wrong way. Even if you supported the idea of getting rid of Saddam Hussein, the idea that we went about it the wrong way, people don't want to admit it. He's like, I literally had people in my unit threatening me with violence because I made the point that somebody had died for nothing. He said, but the reason why I said that guy had died for nothing was he died because S2 gave them the wrong house, and they kicked in the door and a dude thought there was burglars and shot him. And it's like, you could really clearly make the case that this guy died for nothing because somebody fucked up and sent him to the wrong house, and he died for no reason. But people were losing their minds because now he's an American hero, and it's a heroic sacrifice. And it really does seem like since you can't kill your way to victory in these kinds of things, and because we've been doing it forever, and obviously if the things that were supposedly going to work in 6 months were going to work, they would have worked 15 years ago. What you wind up instead having is the only sort of tangible victory that anyone can cling to is that there's lots and lots of martyrs. And it just seems, it's obviously unsustainable in the really long run. It's gonna cause just a collapse of our society when we spend ourselves into oblivion. But also, I think, culturally speaking, it's creating a mode of thought that's not too distant from that of ISIS. But it's what do they used to call those guys? Al-Qaeda? I mean, it's that kind of thing. And it doesn't look good. And I'll just leave it at that.
Yeah, like I said, there is a weird thing about, dying in service of this country. And I remember, years ago, I think I was doing some training at Fort McCoy, and I was driving through like their front gate. Not even their front gate, it was a side gate. Like their front gate, the side gate was where all the tactical vehicles had to go through, and driving through the side gate and seeing the side gate like named after a PFC that died in Afghanistan. I'm just like, I can't imagine a worse thing. Like I'm a firm believer that after I'm dead, I don't care. Like, do whatever you want. If you want to cremate me, if you want to bury me at Arlington, whatever, I don't care because I'm dead. But definitely don't put my name on a fucking tactical vehicle entry control point. Don't put my name on a DFAC. Don't do any of that stuff because it's like the worst memorializing that I can imagine. Is like, we're gonna remember Sergeant Horton, at this Wisconsin reservist base where people drive through and are irritated because there's only one person checking IDs and there's 50 vehicles that need to come through. Yeah, I want my name to be like tacked onto this entry control point of anger and derision, please. Actually, no, I scratched that. Yes, if you can find the most annoying entry control point, put my name on that. I'd be fine with that.
Yeah, agreed.
But yeah,
well, anyway, I think we want to close it down. Yeah.
Yeah. So anyway, thank you everybody. I hope you enjoyed the interview with Joe Haldeman. If you have anyone that you want to maybe have us reach out to, because turns out he was really easy to get a hold of. Just had to email him. And I set up an interview. So, if there's anybody that you guys might think that we should interview, we should talk to, whether they're famous or whether they've just got a weird job in the military, please let us know. You can DM us. I'm at Army Strang. Nate is at In These Deserts. You can follow the podcast at Hell of a Way. Get us on Patreon. We're going to be opening up some more Patreon tiers pretty soon. Hopefully going to be doing some mailers and some packages and things. We got a lot of ideas percolating at the moment, and we're going to start doing some testing and then kind of go from there. So, patreon.com/hellofaWay to die. Even if you don't want the free gear, we've got a lot of really good stuff. We just released our Hurt Locker episode with Nate's wife Cynthia, who is a civilian but is took film classes. So we've got somebody who can talk about a movie beyond, the guns don't sound right when they shoot it. And can actually give us like critical theory while we make fun of this incredibly shitty movie. So definitely check that out. And as always, you can. What else do we have? Jesus Christ. So also I'm going to be trying to do lives every Thursday evening on YouTube. We have a YouTube channel at Hell of a Way to Die. I'm going to be trying to do lives on every Thursday. I will also be simultaneously simulcasting to Twitter. So if you follow me, you'll see them there as well. But subscribe to the YouTube, and you'll get those delivered to you as well. We're trying in every way to beam all of our takes directly into your head in any way, shape, or form that we can. Final thing I want to say: if you join the Patreon at the $3 or above level, we have a Patreon-only Discord server chat. And it's fairly lively. We are more than happy to bring more people in to join the conversation. Everything from cooking to bicycle riding to politics to general sports. We got it all. We got it all in there. So $3 and above, if you join in, you'll get access to that as well. So again, any way that we can fucking beam our takes into your head, we're going to do it. So thank you so much, and we'll talk to you all next week.